Hello everyone and welcome to PM Studios Photoshop Tutorials. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to do a artwork piece of magic here on Photoshop. It is going to be relatively fast and it's going to be relatively easy, so if you have any questions about what I am going to do, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Other than that, let's go ahead and get started right away here. First thing we want to do is we want to go to File, then New. And inside here, we can name it whatever we like, and we're going to go ahead and set it to 1920 by 1080, not 1090, and then set the resolution to 400 pixels per inch. This is pretty standard as to what we're going with now. As you can see, I have mine inverted, so it automatically filled it with black. If you have it like this, which are the defaults, you want to go ahead and go to your paint bucket tool with black as your foreground and fill it with black, so that we can go ahead and get that rolling. Once we have that finished, we're going to go in here to the cursor tool and we're going to create a couple new layers, specifically one actually, and then we're going to go to our rectangular marquee tool and we are going to create a vertical rectangular box that covers the surface area of the entire image. The width is up to you. I'm going to go ahead and set it to right about there, and make sure that it goes from the top to the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfectly exact, but it has to be roundabouts. And I'm going to go ahead and fit screen with this guy right here so we can see what the hell we're doing. Alrighty. And now that we have that set, we're going to go in here to our foreground color, and we're going to just drop the intensity down so that it's kind of a lightish, maybe a mid-gray, I'd say. And then we're just going to go to our paint bucket, and with the layer 1 selected that we created and the rectangular marquee, we're just going to go ahead and fill that with the gray. Now, after we have that all selected and good to go, we are going to go to Image, or rather Edit, and then Define Brush Preset. And we're just going to call this a vertical bar. Hit OK, and that will create our brush preset. Now, go ahead and push Ctrl-Alt-Z once to get rid of that, then push Ctrl-D to get rid of the marquee. We're going to go to our paintbrush tool and open up our little paintbrush area so that we can have all the options to select. If you scroll down, you'll see that I have two set, the original one that I had created and the new one that I just created with you. So you're going to go ahead and select the vertical bar that you had created, and we're just going to, actually for this you might want to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to go to actual pixels. No. Actually, let's go ahead and just leave it at fit screen for now. Go back to your paintbrush tool, I apologize for this, and click here for your brush presets. It's the little item right next to the brush selector. So it's just a little folder with an image of 3 brushes inside of a cup. Alternatively, it should be popping up here. If it's not, then, well, you've always got the other place to fall back to, and it will appear there afterwards. And we're going to add a couple things here real quick. We're going to do shape dynamics, scattering, and color dynamics, as well as a smoothing, which should automatically be chosen. Now, I've been doing this before, so it's automatically set to what I need it to be, but obviously we're going to be doing it at however many pixels the image is tall. So for mine, it's going to be 1080 pixels. And then the roundness is going to be 100%. Spacing is going to be 25%. Now, if you want less, you're going to increase the spacing. If you want more, you're going to decrease the spacing. But that's something you'll have to come back to later. We're going to move to shape dynamics. We've got the size jitter at 50%. Minimum diameter is at 0%. Angle jitter is at 0. Roundness jitter is going to be at 1%. And then the minimum roundness is going to be 25%. I'm going to move down to scattering. The scattering is going to be all the way up to the maximum, which is 1000%. The count is going to be 1, and the count jitter is going to be 100%. And then inside the color dynamics, it's pretty much going to be 50% all the way down. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that purity is a positive 50, not a negative 50. And then there is nothing to worry about in smoothing. So after we've got that all set up, we're going to go ahead and drag our brush over to the side of our image. It doesn't really matter where you do it. You're just going to hold down the mouse and drag it all the way across. And that'll do it. If you want more, like I said, you can add more. If not, then just leave it the way it is. So that is our little image right there. The first thing we're going to do is going to double click on the layer itself to go into the layer styles. We're going to go down here to gradient overlay, go inside the gradient overlay, and we're going to set the angle to 0%. And then go inside the gradient itself. And now the only way I got to these spectrums right here is I went and clicked on this arrow up here inside the group box, or on the lines of the group box for presets, and I went down here to spectrums. So go ahead and click on spectrums. It'll ask you to replace the current gradients with the gradients from spectrums. Go ahead and push OK. You don't want to append, and it's going to come up with this set right here. Now you can tell we have 3 different lightnesses. We're just going to go with the standard lightness for the spectrum. Push OK. Push OK again, and now we're halfway finished. I know, this is a really short tutorial, like I said. So, as you can see, we've got kind of the typical Apple kind of thing. You know, how you've always seen all of the Apple products, the iPhone and the iPad and this and that. They all have this type of background on it, where it always has the rainbow with some sort of abstract art. Well, that's exactly what we're working with today. So what I found is one of the things you can do is if it's too kind of ghostly for you here, you can always add another one which will brighten it up and enrich it a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. And then from here, we have 2 different kinds of options we can kind of do. Number 1, we can go to the line tool. So we have, it's normally the rectangle tool, but all you have to do is click and hold it, and then go down to the line tool, and you've got it selected. And go ahead and reset it to the defaults, so we have it as black, and I did that by pushing D. And then we're going to want to change the weight to whatever you like. This is a 1920 by 1080, so we're probably not going to want to do 20 pixels, maybe 10 pixels. Maybe that'll be too much. We'll have to fiddle around with it and see. So we're just going to click somewhere in the middle, doesn't have to be precise, and drag it all the way across. Now this is the one thing that I would like to be precise, is to make sure that it's perfectly level. And you can kind of tell that by the discoloration of the outline of the line. So if it's all one solid color, you can pretty much guarantee yourself that it's a straight line. Now after we've drawn this line, what we're going to do is we're just going to double click on the layer styles. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the image itself. So we're going to go ahead and change the gradient to 0 degrees, add the spectrum, and already you can tell that that's kind of blending in, but it's not really sticking out as much as I'd like it to. So we're going to do outer glow, and we're going to go ahead and increase the outer glow spread, and then bump up the size so that you can really notice it. And then for the gradient color, we're going to go ahead and add the spectrum here. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't look so good this time. Maybe it's just a matter of stepping it up. I think going back here with this guy would probably be the better idea. And you can change the gradient color to whatever you like, so maybe a red would do well here and make it stick out a little more. Again, this is purely a matter of choice. Artwork is not a fine science. A lot of it is just fiddling around and discovering your own style. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with the red here. So now we've got kind of this line, and we can actually duplicate that so that it sticks out more, as you can tell. So the red is kind of a complementary color to a lot of this, with the exception of this little area and the orange right here. You can see it in most places, which is kind of what we want to do. So, like I said, that's one option, and you can fiddle around with the outer glow as much as you like. Alternatively, what we can do is, let me go ahead and group these guys, and then group these as well. And always remember to label your groups, so line, bars, and then we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to group that, and we're going to call it squares. And what determines whether or not it opens up is purely by the fact that I double-clicked on the outside instead of squarely on the text, so that's why I did that. Now we're going to go to the rectangular marquee tool again. We're going to hold down Shift while we drag it out, which is going to make it a perfect square. We're not going to do it too big because we don't want it to be entirely obnoxious. We're just going to drag it out just a smidge, just so that it's enough to be visible. And then we're going to do the same thing that we did with the vertical bar, which is going to bring it to a mid to light gray, and then we're just going to go to our paint bucket tool. Oops. Have the group selected, so you want to make sure you have the layer selected. I'm going to fill that, and then we're going to go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and we're going to call this squares, or blocks, or whatever you want. Pixels even, you can call them pixels. And then go ahead and push OK. I'm going to cancel this out because I've got one already. And then undo it, deselect everything, then go to your brush once again. And on the new layer, we're going to go here to our brush presets again, and select our new brush. And we're going to go in here to our options, do the same scattering, textures, shape dynamics, scattering, and textures, and all of the options should be preset for you. The one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into the brush tip shape, and you're going to want to go to the spacing and do at least 500. Now I know in the preview it doesn't really show that much, but it's really going to start showing up here when we start fiddling around with this. So we actually want to go into the bars and show those again, so we kind of have a general reference. We're just going to drag them out. As you can see, they're kind of populating, and you can do however much you feel is appropriate. Again, this is all a bit of exploration for all of us. We're going to go into the layer styles once we have our pixels on there, and once again we're going to do the gradient. You don't have to keep doing the rainbow gradient, but that's kind of the going accent for the entire tutorial, so that's why I keep going back to it. You're certainly more than welcome to go back to it yourself, or do something completely different if you like. So we're just going to toss on an outer glow on there. We're not going to touch any of the settings, because that tiny outer glow really does a lot for these tiny little pixels. And once we've done that, you can either leave it this way, or you can go into Filters, and then go to Blur, and Motion Blur. We're going to set the angle to 0, and the distance to about 25, 26, 27. As you can tell, it really gives it a little bit of a blur. And then we can drop the opacity of the layer down just a smidge, so that they're kind of sitting around in the background. So about 50% is what I'm going to do. And then of course that would complete the photo for me, because that looks a lot better to me than the line. Alternatively, you can always do everything all at once, but that might be a little overwhelming for one image, so again, it's entirely up to you. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. Like I said earlier, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Also, if you have any suggestions for future tutorials, please leave them in the comment section below or message them to me. I do pay attention to all the messages that come in, so don't be afraid to send me messages. Until next time, I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial.